Hey, what's going on, y'all? Got back from the beach yesterday. Probably gonna be my last fishing trip of the year, and I have switched gears into deer season. I'm out here today doing a little bit of scouting, doing some camera hanging. I'm in a place, you see this giant scrape. If you'd watched the video back in the spring, me and Christy had come in here and found this spot, one of the biggest scrapes that I've ever found. And it has some huge tracks in it. And this was in probably late February. So I do know that this deer survived deer season. If he's still alive, I'm hoping that he's still in here, and I'm hoping that he is a giant because he had some really big feet. But today I'm gonna hang some cameras and I'll talk to y'all a little bit about my scouting and camera strategy. I've had several people ask me about it. There's actually a pretty good sized rub on that tree right there. If y'all can see it, right there. Anyway, what I normally do when deer season ends is I'll try to scout for about 2 or 3 months. Postseason, while you still got scrapes on the ground and you can still tell which rubs are fresh. Depending on what rubs are on what kind of trees, it's really hard to tell. Sometimes within about 6 to 8 months, the rubs that were fresh the previous season will be healed up, and you can't even hardly tell that they were made that previous season. They look like they're way older than they actually are. So it's good to get out and do that. If you don't have an opportunity to get out and do any kind of scouting postseason or preseason, try to base what you've seen past years on your hunting strategy. What I normally do with my cameras is I come out here in September, I'll hang up all of my cameras with fresh batteries, deleted SD cards, and I'll leave them up all deer season long. And here in Alabama, our season lasts through February the 10th. So I need my cameras to run from now until mid-February. I'll come back and pull those cameras and then check to see what dates the bucks were traveling through, checking or chasing their does. And typically what you'll find out is that in each camera location, even if it's only a few hundred yards away, each camera location will have a specific 3 to 7 day period, sometimes up to 2 weeks, where there are multiple bucks coming to that one spot. And just about the rest of the entire deer season, there won't be. Sometimes you'll have 2 different dates, especially if the does did not get bred in that area. And you'll have multiple days, about 28 days, 30 days apart, in separate weeks. But you can record all of those in a calendar and keep up with everything so that the following seasons, you can come back to those specific spots on those specific date ranges. And it really heightens your chance of seeing a good buck for the amount of days that you're able to sit, especially if you're limited to days and you can't just sit day after day after day. At least you'll know when you look at your calendar exactly where you need to be sitting on those days that you're off work. And there again, if you can't scout and if you can't hang cameras, look back years ago. Even if you're hunting the same property that you hunted anywhere from a year to 20 years ago, look back and see when the big deer were killed, see where they were killed, look at exact dates and see if you can find out exactly when you or other people have harvested deer in very specific spots. And go back in there on those exact spots, on those exact dates this coming season and sit a few days and just see what happens. Very good chance, as long as those doe groups are still in there, usually the younger does carry on those genes, and they normally will stay. I mean, 20, 30 years from now, those deer in that area will still be coming in heat those same dates, and those bucks will just show up at each spot while they're breeding. All right, so we're gonna get this camera hung. We'll show y'all how I hang a camera. A lot of guys are very picky about hanging really high or really low or whatever, but I'm just not. Typically where I'm gonna hang a camera, there's very little chance that anybody's going to find it. Sometimes I will put one in a little bit more obvious location, and I might hang it up a little bit higher, but I've kind of learned now, if you can get on a trail, find the trail that the deer are using where the sign is at. If you're going down that trail a little ways and hang your camera on that trail, and you can set your camera to video mode. I always run my cameras on video because a lot of times you'll have a doe pass by with a buck behind her, and so many times you'll miss that buck if you've just got it snapping pictures. Good thing about hunting a trail or having your camera on a trail is that you can set it to video mode and you won't have 4,000 or 5,000 pictures like you would over food, over a bait pile or over any kind of food source. Now, I will put it on a scrape. I'm going to put the camera on this scrape just because it's in the middle of nowhere. Where this is at is very inconspicuous, even on a map. So me and Christy stumbled upon this, and I really don't think that anybody is going to have any idea where this camera is at. I'm not going to worry too much about it. We're just going to hang it here and keep our fingers crossed that we can get this guy on camera. See you right there. Got the camera, it's about waist high. And here's the scrape right here. Big scrape. There's the licking branch right there. And looking at this, if you were to ask on social media where you need to do cameras, everybody's going to tell you they need to be 10, 15 foot high, pointing downward. They need to do this, they need to do that. Buck's going to see it. Buck's going to spook. Y'all, I don't hang cameras to kill deer the next day off of my camera pictures. These are not cell cameras. There is no phone service where I'm at. And I'm just running them to check them after the season is over with for the following season. I know that may sound a little bit crazy to some people, but if you don't ever get ahead of what you're doing with your scouting and your planning, then the odds are you're not going to be near as successful as if you're able to get ahead of it and kind of figure out a game plan as to what's going to happen rather than what's already happening. Because from what we've seen on those dates, when we come into a hunting area based on previous year's dates, a lot of times there is no sign yet. We get in there and we start seeing bucks chasing does before there's any sign laid on the ground. While we're there for that week, the signs start showing up all over the place. And usually by the time the sign is covering the ground in the trees, the deer have moved on. And you're just too late. By the time you find that sign, unless it is extremely fresh, there's a very good chance that that deer has already moved on. So don't let social media scare you out of putting your cameras up where they need to be in order to get that picture. In a place that you're probably not going to hunt anyway, a place that you're just going to run cameras to figure out what is coming in there for the following seasons. Don't worry about what you scare. Make sure you get a picture of that deer. You need to know what it is, and you need to know when it is. So if you got your camera in a spot that may or may not work just because of what somebody told you need to do in order to keep from scaring deer or to keep from camera from getting, stolen or whatever, you're probably just not going to get that picture. So make sure that your camera is where it needs to be. If you're worried about the thing getting stolen, you can put it up higher if you want, or just buy cheaper cameras. That's typically what I do. I'll show you a little bit of where I'm at and why I'm here. Where this scrape is right here, you can see there's a big old drop off. There's a big old bowl right here. There's a ridge point that runs out down here to a creek, and a ridge point that runs out down here to a creek. And these deer just kind of coming up here wind checking does when the thermals are rising, in the morning. So this should be a great morning spot. It probably isn't going to be worth a flip early season, and it probably isn't going to be that good the entire year until rut, until this deer is supposed to be here. When we found this sign, when the scrape was being worked, when there were fresh tracks in it, it was mid to late February. So I don't know if that deer had come in here and made sign a month before, or if the scrape had been here some during the season and there were some does that had not been bred, or if that deer was working this area, if those does come in that late in this area. But the good thing is I'm actually going to be able to come in and hunt this possibly later and maybe get on a deer that is still rutting on late in the season when all the other ones have quit. My kill tree is going to be right here. There's a pine. Got a little hole right there to shoot through. Right there is where I'm planning on getting. Got a big red oak right here. There's a couple of big white oaks, a couple of chestnut oaks in here too. So right now I hadn't found any acres dropping yet, but there just very well could be some food in here in just the next few months. So hopefully we get lucky. Maybe we can come sit a day or two late season, right before the season's about to end, kind of when we found this sign, and see if we can't get on something.